The crash happened on a wide three-lane section of the Pacific Highway about 7 kilometres north of the Tea Gardens turnoff. Police believe the car, being driven south by a 47-year-old Newcastle woman, crossed onto the wrong side of the road after rounding a bend. Her vehicle slammed into an oncoming B-double that careered off the highway after the impact. The stretch is earmarked for elimination under the Pacific Highway upgrade jointly funded by the state and federal governments. For local MP John Turner, it's further proof the Tea Gardens Bulahdelah section needs to be given priority.
Well, obviously, if you've got dual carriageway, then the risk of accidents such as this is vastly reduced, and that's why the state government simply has to get on with it.
At this stage, the crash scene falls into the 23-kilometre second and third stage of the Bulahdelah to Karua upgrade. The Roads and Traffic Authority's website only says a start on those will happen at a later date. But John Turner argues after the signing of the AusLink Transport Funding Agreement, there should be no further delays.
There is no reason why it can't start immediately. There is a long lead time, we all admit that. But whilst we have this delay in the upgrade of the road, we're going to have more deaths. We've seen it tragically in recent days here.
Gary Blair, NBN News. It's a fear parents of toddlers or young children have every time they get into the family vehicle. Despite drivers checking their rear vision mirrors, motor accident authority statistics reveal one child per week will be run over in the driveway of a home. To show the blind spots of vehicles, the Early Childhood Road Safety Program at Macquarie University has produced these silhouettes of 2-year-old children that are placed every 2.5 metres behind a vehicle. Hunter KidSafe believes it's an invaluable tool to highlight there's plenty a driver can't see.
So that we can show people how it looks a long way behind, and you think just first looking at it that you would be able to see those children out of the rear vision. But once you actually get into the driver's seat, as we saw, you cannot see those children.
And four-wheel drives are not the only vehicle involved in these types of accidents.
It isn't the case, that's true. I mean, they are overrepresented, but it can happen with any vehicle.
The Child Accident Prevention Organisation's advice to parents when moving the family vehicle: know where your children are.
You put your eyes on your child. If you know you can see where your child is and you're reversing, then your child is safe.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
November tends to be a slightly higher month because we start to have people going on to holidays and lots of people out shopping and more activity on the road.
For some women, getting married is the ultimate fairy tale come true. It's the most romantic time of their life, absorbed by the excitement of the big day. For others, such as Kelly Hilda, who's soon to be wed, it's about commitment and companionship.
Marriage is all about commitment and passion and expressing your love for each other. So getting married to me is like a public declaration saying, I want to marry you and you're the love of my life.
It's these different meanings and values of marriage which Emma Kirby, a sociology master's student, is researching.
A lot of people do want the big white wedding, or they want to kind of have that really romantic idea of spending the rest of their life with someone. A lot of other people don't want to grow old alone, and they want that companionship and security as well.
Recent research indicates young women are increasingly cautious of marriage and about the implied commitment to domestic work and motherhood. However, not many studies have focused on the ideologies of marriage.
And we're basically looking at the meanings of marriage and why young people, and young women especially, get married and why they want to get married in today's society.
Emma is seeking hunter women aged 18 to 35 with any type of relationship status to participate in the research. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Ray Masters and his 5 marathon mates started bowling on Sunday afternoon and haven't stopped. At 1 o'clock today, they reached a major milestone. They'll break the world record for continuous bowls at 9:26 tonight, but they're planning to play until Friday just to make sure. And there's only one word to describe the way they're feeling tonight.
Buggered. Yeah, absolutely buggered. It's been a big effort from all the boys, trying our best to get this record on board.
The aim is to raise $50,000 for Ray's 16-year-old daughter Elizabeth, who's undergoing chemotherapy for the autoimmune disease lupus, which attacks the body's healthy cells and tissue.
My daughter Elizabeth, God love her, yeah, she has this disease. Unfortunately, takes over 100 tablets a week, and yeah, it's all about her and the thousands of other people like her. Excuse me.
No time for interviews when there's bowls to be bowled, and plenty of them. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A pet is a commitment of, say, minimum 10 years, and you have to be sure that the people that are getting the gift are really happy to take that commitment.
Do you call a sheep with a sheep call? Or maybe a sheepdog call? Well, for this family it doesn't really matter because for all intents and purposes their woolly pet answers to both. They found Ridge beside the road out near Lightning Ridge after his mother had been killed by a car and decided to give him a good home in the harbourside suburb of Stockton in Newcastle, and he fits right in beside the family dogs, Gus and Itchy.
Bars when the dogs bark and sleeps under the house with the dogs.
Milo the cat isn't as friendly after a couple of run-ins, but by and large, Ridge is just one of the family.
He eats the dog dry food and the cat food dry. He eats our vegetable garden. He eats all our scraps, pretty vegetable scraps. And
He's a woolly garbage guts.
He is.
It's pretty cool because you're probably like the only one that has one.
The locals aren't quite sure what to make of Ridgie, and there's that small matter of all the new trees that have been nibbled to shreds. Oh, and a shearer will pay a visit to Stockton before summer.
Teach the kids how to start knitting.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
They're precious little bundles of life, but for some couples, 1 in 10 to be exact, it's a struggle to have a baby, many waiting several years to fall pregnant, while others are unable to have children at all. This small box, which is a sperm isolation device, could help change that. It increases the chances for couples who are having difficulty by getting rid of cells with DNA damage, which can compromise a pregnancy.
It isolates sperm straight out of the ejaculate into buffered medium, and the cells that you isolate, most importantly, are free of DNA damage.
The best cells are then used in IVF treatment. It's been invented by Professor John Aitken and Chris Ainsworth from the Centre for Excellence in Biotechnology and Development at the University of Newcastle. Birth defects among IVF babies may also be reduced with the help of the sperm sorter.
IVF is a very safe procedure, and the incidence of birth defects with IVF is not dramatically different from the normal population. But inasmuch as there is a risk there, this particular procedure should obviate that risk.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Odell Bradley spoke to us today after being told his services are no longer required at the Hunter Pirates.
Definitely disappointed, a lot of things behind the scenes happen, most people probably don't know about, but, people make decisions and, I'm going to live with those decisions.
Decisions Pirates coach Adrian Hurley says weren't easy, claiming the import didn't fit the playing style of his team.
We have a very good inside quartet of players at the moment. Where we need help is in the back court and on the wings, and his game is not quite what we need in that area.
Hurley says Bradley's inability to shoot three-pointers has cost the import his spot, facts not disputed by the departing guard. Signed with so much expected of him, the 24-year-old leaves the club with hopes of playing in the NBL again, New Zealand among the clubs his agent has approached.
He can definitely play in the NBL, there's no question about that, and he may be a very good player for another club at another time.
Speculation which took the import by surprise.
Coach said that?
Yes.
Wow. Well, maybe, a couple of things change or whatever. Maybe I could be back at this place.
Having forged friendships with teammates and club management, Bradley leaves on Friday, and if another deal in the NBL can't be struck, he'll return to the United States.
Sharing beers and no doubt holding back a few tears. This is a group of mates who've been through some incredibly trying times. They're among the surviving members of the 1st Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment's A Company, and this is a very special reunion.
We're just like a big family of brothers, and it's just like a homecoming.
40 years ago today, they fought the Battle of Hill 82 in South Vietnam. 2 of their comrades did not survive, and the bodies of Lance Corporal Richard Parker and Private Peter Gilson were never retrieved.
I was right there. I was the furthest one forward, but I couldn't do much because the enemy was just too dug in.
I think you'll never stop thinking of them because it's they were part of your life.
But you can see how important gatherings like this are for remembering the good times as well.
This is a marvellous feeling. It makes the heart pound. It's really, really spectacular.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. There's nothing like a bit of Brazilian hospitality to put you in the mood, but while it was all fun and games on the sand, it was a completely different story in the drink. The rivalry between Kelly Slater and Andy Irons is nothing new, but both are extra determined to one-up the other at the Nova Skin, with the coveted World Championship at stake. Slater has a record 7th WCT crown in his sights and breezed through his round 3 heat, posting the highest score of the day against his local wildcard opponent. Irons also found the going easy against a Brazilian. He must place higher than Slater in this event to stay in the running for the 2005 title.
I got nothing to lose, everything to gain, And the world title's far away, but as long as there's a shot, that's all I need.
The second last event on this year's competition calendar is also an important one for Gold Coast surfer Bede Durbidge, who must perform well to have any hope of securing a spot on next year's Elite Tour. But drawing Irons in tomorrow's round, he's sure to find the going tough.
Yeah, and he can't lose and I can't lose pretty much, so it's going to be a good heat.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
It's an Australian first, a permanent exhibition devoted to the normally closed world of fraternal societies. Dr. Bob James is the brains behind the venture. It's a culmination of 20 years of research and collecting memorabilia.
It's been largely my intention to demystify a story that some people regard as strange, exotic, mysterious, and just to point out that it's been fundamental to Australian society for at least 200 years.
The rituals, passwords and secret handshakes are often written off as secret men's business, but Dr. Bob says it's far deeper than that.
Oh, it's all true, but they always had a serious and practical function. They were designed to protect the funds that the organisation had collected or to protect the skills that were being passed on.
In Australia, friendly societies were developed by early settlers who banded together to provide hospitals and medical services they lacked, which eventually evolved into modern-day private health funds. And that's not all you'll learn. The whole exhibition is a history lesson, walking among original regalia, including collars, aprons, medals and badges, along with plenty of robes. The exhibition is at the Regional Museum Complex. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The discovery of a damaged fiberglass boat near Karua in early June 2000 sparked the search for Harry Gordon. The then 51-year-old was reported to have been travelling along the Karua River toward Port Stephens when the apparent mishap occurred. Searchers were unable to locate Mr Gordon's body, leading to an inquest held 10 months later by then Deputy State Coroner John Abernethy to find the Sydney businessman had drowned. However, recent information suggesting Gordon was not dead led Lower Hunter detectives to arrest the 56-year-old at Sydney Airport last night after he arrived on a flight from New Zealand.
Harry Bentley Gordon, whose address on court papers was listed as unknown, appeared before Sydney's Waverley local court today on charges alleging public mischief, fraud and passport offences. He was refused bail and remanded in custody.
Gordon will appear before Raymond Terrace local court next week. Gary Blair, NBN News.
A smoke-filled mine and little light. It's the closest many of these people have come to experiencing a real-life mining emergency. Today, 48 international delegates went underground at the Newcastle Mines Rescue Station and utilised compressed air breathing apparatus used exclusively in New South Wales coal mines and nowhere else in the world.
We're designed to give them a simulation to escape through any sort of atmosphere that they may encounter in a coal mine.
There were 2 deaths at Hunter Valley coal mines last year, and while that's a far cry from the 4,500 people who were killed in China, Australian Mines Rescue personnel say there's work to be done.
We're still trying to achieve 0 deaths and 0 injuries in the mining industry.
It's this policy that's intrigued our Chinese counterparts.
They're in the process of building 13 rescue stations in China and are very interested in looking at how we set ours up, how we're funded, how our trainees operate.
Today forms part of an international mines rescue conference being held in Sydney this week, and it's giving countries an opportunity to share their technology. Colleen West, NBN News.
The comforts of home were washed away last night for Jason Stokes, with the greens running slow.
The rain sort of pulls it up and brings everyone back to even par, I think.
Giving away a 7-point lead early on, Stokes fought back, this attempt bagging the crowd favourite 4 shots. Wollongong's Tom Ellam gave as good as he got, edging closer to 31 with pinpoint plays.
The last shot is always the hardest. You often see people get stuck on 30.
Stokes made sure of that, killing this end, earning him more time to pull off yet another pressure shot. But Ellam squeezed the local out of contention. Nevertheless, the semi-final finish was Stokes' best yet at this event.
It was good to hopefully keep the supporters a little bit happier than, if I got rolled yesterday, I would have been pretty disappointed, and I think the spectators would have been too.
In the other game, it was an all-Sydney matchup with Birrong's Scott Corndall earning his spot in the final and winning it after going shot for shot with Ray Pearce in the semi.
Yeah, he's really solid. He's always in the area, like that showed in the score. He just missed one shot, and I think that was just the difference in the game in the end.
It's the latest highlight in a distinguished medical research career. Just last week, we reported on a machine devised by Professor John Aitken's team, a so-called sperm sorter, which could help many couples realise their dream of a baby.
Roughly 1 in 20 Australian males is infertile, and we have no idea why.
Professor Aitken's work won him the Hunter Medical Research Institute Award for Research Excellence.
We work in an area which often doesn't get talked about very much, which is infertility and fertility, and it's just good to have that field recognised.
Asthma is another of medicine's most puzzling areas, and last night's 2 other major awards went to researchers in the field. Dr. Peter Walk focuses on the impact of viruses on asthmatics and people with chronic lung problems.
They suffer terribly from getting viral infections, and we don't have very effective treatments for them at the moment. And so we're trying to understand the mechanisms of these infections in greater detail.
While Dr. Jodie Simpson is studying inflammation in asthmatics.
I love the work that I do, especially the opportunity to be able to impact and improve people's lives.
HMRI also handed out prizes and grants totalling $335,000.
On the inside by Cootamundra Girl, 4 lengths away to What Appeal. Texas Goal want to get a move on her, and then came an easy hypo and well back Bittigan Flyer. Poison Ivory's a big leader on the turn. I don't think they'll pick him up. He's about 8 lengths and going strongly. Poison Ivory too good for Cootamundra Girl. Texas Gold Albert's on fire. What Appeal, and then came Jack Pacino, Medici hypo.
This is one angry councillor.
Well, I'm outraged, really. I'm outraged that the state government would override the wishes of the people of Newcastle.
He says Planning Minister Frank Sartor's comments that council was dragging its feet are totally untrue. Councillor Osborne says when it comes to deciding the future of one of Newcastle's most important development sites, the council should take careful consideration.
The biggest fear is the state government will ignore the people of Newcastle and put lots and lots of buildings on the site, lots of apartments, high-rise.
But the Lord Mayor says the minister's decision was not unexpected.
Well, I've been flagging for some months that if we don't get the job finished, someone else will finish it for us. That's exactly what's going to happen.
The Planning Minister will also become the consent authority for this 50-hectare site at Fletcher, known as the Dan Lands, which has been earmarked for residential development for about 5 years. Meanwhile, a week after the state government released its draft Lower Hunter Regional Strategy, a new report has found that government should plan for 50 years ahead, not 25. Commissioned by 5 organisations, including the Hunter Business Chamber, the report predicts the need for up to 261,000 new homes in the region by 2051. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Williamtown has lived up to its name, the Hornet's Nest, while 3 local squadrons participated in the East Coast Air Defence exercise. For the past fortnight, they've protected their coastal airspace from intrusions by F-111s from Amberley near Brisbane and a contingent of Northern Territory-based Hornets in a test of skills and readiness.
And we certainly had more complex scenarios ready to test them out towards the end, and we got to those higher complexity type missions.
The 32-year-old F-111 and the FA-18 Hornet, now 20 years in service, may be veteran fighters, but the clash provided valuable lessons.
I've got a new respect for the F-111s. They did very well. They've got new capabilities as well on their aircraft, and we've got the upgraded radar as well, so it's a pretty even match.
Ground-based radar was vital for air defence controllers or the directors of dogfights to perfect giving orders to pilots.
We've got the ultimate hammer on the decision making, so they need to really listen to us and decide where we're going to put them so we can defend what we are trying to defend.
The pilots also relied on other personnel located off base.
I've also deployed personnel to several locations up the coast just to improve our communications coverage out over the airspace.
The exercise declared an overall success because of community support.
We only conduct them every couple of years, and we certainly do appreciate their perseverance with our need to train in this way.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Known for giving nothing away, Jets manager Richard Money has a framework in mind, and that's where it's staying until the 11th hour anyway.
And no one finds that out until 6:30 tomorrow, but we'll take the same 16, and I wouldn't think there'll be too many team changes in the starting 11.
Joe Wheelhouse is one of those changes. Rolling his ankle at training, the young midfielder won't play tomorrow night. Nick Carl is carting a knee injury but has travelled with the squad, tipped to again feature alongside Ante Milicic up front.
Ante's a great player to play with, you just got to give him the ball and he'll do the rest, which is hard to find players that, that are always going to score the good chances.
Chances too for Melbourne's younger guard, with striker Archie Thompson out due to national commitments. Experienced defenders Jeffrey Clays and Kevin Muscat will also miss the round 12 clash. Nevertheless, the Jets know Melbourne is prepared, a side seething after 3 straight losses.
Throughout the season, they've changed their start lineup a few times in terms of who's playing and whatnot, so I think they have a lot of depth there. So, but like I said, they have a few players out, but we haven't looked at it like that. Melbourne are a great side, especially in Melbourne.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
While there's been a focus on recycling across the Hunter, Lake Macquarie City Council has turned its attention to those throwaway items that end up as landfill. A gas extraction system is being established to collect the methane and carbon dioxide that's produced from the breakdown of waste, putting them to good use.
It just draws that out of the ground, converts it into electricity, which is then pumped into the generating system.
The system is proving successful in Sydney, Queensland and South Australia, and it's hoped the amount of gas extracted from the Awabba site will provide enough electricity for 1,000 homes a year. It's estimated the system could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 44,000 tonnes a year. That's equivalent to taking 10,500 cars off the road.
The licence conditions also request us to monitor the gas, and by us reducing the amount of gas that's in the ground, we satisfy EPA requirements.
The system is expected to be up and running before Christmas. Colleen West, NBN News. HSC exams may be all but behind them, but the work hasn't stopped for these students from St Francis Xavier College at Hamilton. They've begun packing boxes of toys, books and sporting equipment that will accompany them to East Timor on Tuesday. It's there they'll spend 5 weeks teaching English, renovating classrooms and working at a disabilities hospital.
I think I'll experience more of the world by doing this than going to schoolies, and probably won't remember much of that anyway.
I think Schoolies Week is a temporary fix, whereas this is going to be a life-lasting memory.
Teacher Bob Sheridan says he'll never forget his trip to the recovering war zone last year. Images of poverty and no gifts on Christmas Day forever etched in his mind.
And on that day I took a soccer ball down to a park and 100 kids came and just swamped on me. We had a big game of soccer, and it's a memory I think I'll carry forever.
It certainly hasn't been an easy road for the team of 6 students who have wrapped up a big year at school and have also managed to pay their own expenses for the trip. Colleen West, NBN News. While this latest round of federal funding of $14 million for the next 2 years is more than welcome, unfortunately it seems it doesn't go far enough. The Hunter Urban Division of General Practice would like greater financial security for the after-hours GP service. Yesterday, CEO Dr Arne Sprogus met with Federal Health Minister Tony Abbott in Canberra.
Well, he's got funding for 2 years, but he recognised that a normal service shouldn't have to go cap in hand every year, now 4 times, to 3 different ministers.
In the last year, the 250 doctors involved in the Hunter After Hours service have treated 100,000 patients, both in their surgeries and through their call centre. That's alleviating pressure on emergency departments in our region's hospitals. And the Health Minister is well aware of just how vital the service is.
He was unbelievably complimentary about the service. He recognises its enormous value and the contribution it makes, and the quality of it by comparison to many other services.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
When Nelson Bay Whale Watch operator Frank Future was offered the chance to once again take custody of a boat he and his brother sold 30 years ago, he jumped at the deal. But the 77-year-old riveted iron craft, originally built for the German Navy, was rotting in a boatyard in Hawaii and needed 3 months of hard labour to get her ready for the trip across the Pacific back to Port Stephens.
So we got the boat for $1. Which I suppose does happen a bit, but it costs us a lot more than that, of course, to fix it up. But she was a piece of history.
With the work complete and the good wind refloated, Frank and his crew set off, having countless encounters with sea life, including a close-up look at pilot whales and some giant sperm whales between Fiji and Vanuatu.
because of my involvement with whale watching and conservation of whales, will be feeding that into what's known about the movement of sperm whales, especially as the Japanese are a bit interested in catching them at the moment. We're very interested in conserving them.
Now back in the bay, the yacht will be used for sail training, and after 72 days at sea, the crew is readjusting to life ashore.
Well, I've stopped chasing my dinner across the table. I've learned to put a drink down and trust that it'll be there when I turn my back and go back again, and being home with friends and family and my girlfriend's that's good.
National records have been set here in the past, and track officials are expecting another to fall tomorrow night. Defending mile champion Hexus is back for the $60,000 feature, but has to beat a strong Kiwi contingent.
For real, a top-class mare from New Zealand's coming over, and Sly Flying will be driven by one of the best drivers in the world, Tony Herlihy. First time ever he's come here, so it's a great coup.
The winner will be invited to run in the $500,000 Miracle Mile. Starting from Barrier 1, local Hope Mendacity will be made to work for it.
It hasn't got great gate speed. It'll be back on the rails. It'll need a bit of luck.
To a different sort of pace, and almost a week after finishing the 250cc circuit in Valencia, the Hunter Valley's Casey Stoner continues to perform at the Spanish track. At MotoGP test timing today, he posted an impressive lap time of 1 minute 35 seconds. And in basketball, Larry Davidson won't play for the Pirates against the Razorbacks in Sydney tonight, failing to recover from a groin injury. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It was said today in Civic Park that we can never repay them, but we can remember the enormous sacrifice they made for us. And that's exactly what hundreds of people, young and old, did right across the Hunter. 102,000 Australian soldiers, sailors and airmen have lost their lives at war, protecting our freedom and democracy. Regretfully, peace is still not with us. Many today called for world conflicts to end.
The First World War, what did it achieve? Nothing. Second World War, what did it achieve? Nothing. Vietnam, that achieved nothing. It's just something that we can do without.
School students played a pivotal role in the service at the Maitland Memorial Park. Poetry was recited, capturing the sentiment of the day. Remarkably, the poem was written by a 12-year-old girl from Lochinvar.
We cherish the stories. Let them be told. The lives of the men and women, so brave, so bold. We will remember them, lest we forget.
Meantime, pupils at Shoal Bay Primary School unfurled a special flag that was flown in Baghdad by Australian soldiers. The flag was donated by the Australian C-130 Hercules Squadron that has links to the school, forming part of the Remembrance Day activities. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Owning a sports store, this is the closest Ray Bartz gets to a Socceroos jumper these days, since having his career cut short in a friendly match with Uruguay that was anything but.
Unfortunately, I copped a bad injury in that game against Uruguay, which is a blow behind the play, which resulted in paralysis, and finished my career and never played again.
It robbed Bartz of a spot in the 1974 World Cup, a memory that sticks in the minds of his teammates.
These people just walked all over us, kicked us when the referee wasn't looking. Raymond Bartz he scored a goal that day. It was from 25 metres. It was equal of anything, and of today. And next minute, he's laying on the football ground.
So it's no wonder Bartz, Curran, indeed that whole squad of 74 would revel in an Aussie victory to qualify at the expense of Uruguay, especially sweet. Divine intervention would be welcome, Cole says, from the Australian godfather of football himself.
I think he'll be happy, Johnny Warren, up there, and I think we can do it. I've just got this gut feeling that I think we can do it.
Support too from within the Jets camp from Nick Carl. The midfielder has Uruguayan heritage but was born here, and that's where his loyalties lie.
We need Australia to win for everyone, for the A-League, for themselves, for the country,
Hailing from Uruguay, tough Jets defender Mateo Corbo has backed his countrymen, a brave display of national pride. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
Welcome to Martins Creek Public School. In the sleepy little village just north of Patterson, the institution's 100 years old. These days, a full school assembly looks like this. Roll call doesn't take long, which leaves all the more time for the school's outdoor projects. Today, the primary school's 6 little green thumbs and 2 teachers were presented with their prize for winning the Keep Australia Beautiful Tidy Towns Award in the school environment category.
How would you describe your school?
Cleanest in New South Wales if we won Tidy Towns Award.
The environmental award was thanks for the students' efforts in cultivating a veggie garden. While their chook pen also played quite a role, the 6 pupils collect the eggs which they then sell to help fund their horticultural ventures. The judges from Tidy Towns also took a liking to the school's environmental walk, which includes homes for wildlife.
It was really exciting because we worked really hard and everyone put in big effort, and so it's pretty exciting.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. Waves and $130,000. It couldn't have been a better morning for Surfest organisers. 2 months ago, the 20-year-old Surfest was in jeopardy after major sponsor Energy Australia withdrew its funding. The Surfest committee lobbied the New South Wales Major Events Board and last night learnt it had been successful, winning $130,000 in the form of a one-off grant.
The festival will definitely be on now. We'll still present our 6 events in 12 days and try and attract over 900 competitors to Newcastle.
While the grant guarantees that there'll be a festival in 2006, organisers say Surfest still needs another $300,000 or so to run the event at the level they'd like. If that money isn't delivered by sponsors, the rating of Surfest contests could drop, which would potentially impact on the quality of surfers competing.
We're definitely looking at trying to maintain the level of rating we've had, but now it'll mainly depend on us finding the supporter level sponsor right through to a naming rights sponsor for the event.
As well as the cash injection, the New South Wales Major Events Board has also pledged to help Surfest secure sponsors. Surfest is Australia's largest professional surfing event. Hunter Valley Research Foundation figures show it brings $2 million to Newcastle each year. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Clearly outnumbered by the Melbourne faithful, Jets captain Ned Zelich turned to religion but needed much more than a prayer to save Corbo. There was no mistaking this though, as Melbourne squandered early chances. Alan Picken was a thorn in Melbourne's side, and when Vince Leah made this attempt, the Jets were spared again. Ricky Diaco's strike had everyone fooled. Replays showing the ball deflected off the back post behind the net. Stu Mashalik made a long-range attempt, only to be broken by the Melbourne custodian. Jade North saw to this free kick to keep victory searching. A good ball from Nick Carl to Alan Picken down the other end going close. This the 27th attempted goal in a game that finished 0-0. A somewhat sheltered course suited Central Coast crews, making the women's event their own at Nobby's. Spearheaded by Avoca Beach, a 1-2 finish in the open women's heats ensured they'd bagged the final, the club winning 5 of 7 crowns on offer. Round 4 moves to Fingal Beach next Sunday. Basketball and the Pirates are racing the clock to have forward Larry Davidson ready in time for Sunday's match with the Adelaide 36ers in Newcastle. One of the Pirates' top shooters, Davidson has been carrying a groin injury, with coach Adrian Hurley expecting some improvement by Thursday. Back to the pool, and with news of Grant Hackett's withdrawal from the Commonwealth Games team, it presents an opportunity for the Hunters' Hayden Jackson. Now based in Canberra and enjoying a top 10 ranking, the 1500 metre swim is his pet event.
Harry Bentley Gordon disappeared after a boat crash at Karua in June 2000. Even though a major search failed to find his body, then Deputy State Coroner John Abernathy concluded the Sydney businessman had drowned. But the now 56-year-old was found alive, arrested at Sydney Airport last week when police intercepted a flight from New Zealand. Harry Gordon today faced Raymond Terrace Local Court on 4 charges, which alleged he staged his death by drowning to prompt a police investigation and conspired with 2 others to defraud AMP Insurance of $3.5 million worth of life insurance. There were also passport offences, including one alleging at Karua in January 2001 he was in possession of a falsified Australian passport in the name Robert Motzel, the name he used while living overseas.
Harry Gordon's appearance before Magistrate Col Elliott was brief. In a hearing lasting several minutes, Duty Solicitor Jeff Archer entered pleas of guilty to all 4 charges on Mr Gordon's behalf.
Harry Gordon will reappear in Raymond Terrace Court on December 22, but isn't expected to be sentenced until next year. Despite Mr Gordon's guilty plea, Lower Hunter Police spokesman Detective Chief Inspector Wayne Humphrey says investigators continue to work on the case. Gary Blair, NBN News.
There's not too many students who can boast of shaking the Prime Minister's hand, but a pretty few were given that chance when John Howard made a whirlwind visit to the region today. Certainly a different environment to Parliament, where his controversial workplace relations reforms are being debated. The PM was warmly welcomed to the Paterson Citizen of the Year ceremony at a heavily secured Tomaree High School. Mr Howard addressed an assembly of students and community members before helping to present the awards. Young Citizen of the Year went to 12-year-old Justin Ryan, who's been organising charity events since the age of 7. Wakeboarder Michael Godfrey was named Sports Citizen of the Year, while Rotary stalwart Howard Grigger secured the title of Paterson Citizen of the Year. When the formalities concluded, the PM posed for a few happy snaps, gave a wave to some uninvited guests and was whisked away. The Prime Minister then travelled in a convoy to this waterside address in Belmont. It's the home of developer Jeff McCloy. He's attending a private lunch here before flying back to Sydney this afternoon. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Placard waving has become something of a replacement job for these men, and today it had real purpose. Flanked by a large contingent of police, striking Boeing workers were staging a roadside protest when word came through the Prime Minister had agreed to an impromptu meeting. 2 worker delegates got the nod for a private 15-minute conversation.
We asked for the Prime Minister to give us a hand to end this dispute.
27 maintenance workers have been on strike since June, arguing for a collective bargaining agreement with Boeing.
The Prime Minister was happy to listen, but he didn't give us any help.
We expect workers and companies to solve these things themselves.
Mr Howard also distancing the dispute from his industrial reforms.
It has nothing to do with the workplace relations laws that are before the Parliament.
The workers have been picketing here now for 167 days, and with the Prime Minister refusing to intervene, they're digging in even further. Hope of a resolution now resting with cases in both the state and federal industrial relations commissions. Meanwhile, Pacific National Rail workers have set up their own picket, striking for 48 hours.
We want a collective bargain and EBA. Management want to change what we have very radically.
The action has disrupted coal, grain and container rail haulage. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
Shadowed by their namesake, the Jets were also firing at Madawi. It was a break for the coach, concentrating on his own game for a change, rather than the players.
I'm trying to stay as far away from them as possible.
It follows yet another trip, this time to Melbourne, where the game ended with a frustrating 0-0 draw.
Overall, it keeps the run going, and 11 points from the last 15, quite happy with that really.
Defender Alan Picken was the only casualty. Going into the match with 3 yellow cards, he picked up another in the second half, this misdemeanour costing him 1 match.
Yeah, I think I was a bit unlucky. I don't think it was a yellow card, to be honest, but I mean, what do you do?
Golf is one suggestion. The 24-year-old given an extra week off to prepare for a tough road trip to Perth the week after next.
I mean, I'd rather be playing, but I mean, I'm sure whoever comes in will do a good job in my position.
And the beauty of depth means no trouble in finding a replacement. Both proven defenders Jade North and Paul Kohler among the contenders.
We've got Eagleton coming back from injury, so we've got plenty of options what we can do there.
Joe Wheelhouse's ankle is also on the mend, expected to hold up for Sunday's match with Queensland.